1.6 MPI G4FA 130 horsepower. Let's talk about engines. Unlike its predecessor, this generation of Ceed did not have any 2-liter gasoline engine. Almost all Ceeds running on the roads are equipped with a 1.6-liter G4FA aspirated engine. Almost the same engine was installed on the Rio. This engine is more powerful. It produces 130 horsepower and is equipped with 2-phase shifters. This is a completely normal and reliable engine. Yes, at first there were strong doubts about his resource, but the fears were not confirmed. It serves more than 300,000 kilometers. True, those who operated this engine from the very first kilometers and then faced the destruction of the catalyst at 70,000 kilometers may disagree with this. The shedding of its ceramic honeycombs often led to scuffing in the cylinders. In this case, it was important to get rid of the catalyst in time before its dust was sucked into the cylinders. In general, a removed catalyst in the exhaust of these engines after a mileage of 150,000 kilometers is normal. The catalyst does not last longer or longer, but there are pleasant exceptions if the car was operated on good quality gasoline. Let's add that if you have any doubts about the health of the engine, you should look under the oil filler cap. Black deposits will tell you that they skimped a lot on the oil. To be sure, it's worth inspecting the cylinders with an endoscope. Scuffs or traces of oil burns will probably scare you away from the purchase. Well, the diesel of the engine should raise doubts. But the characteristic extraneous sound here is caused not by the phase shifters, but by the pistons rustling when moving to TDC. The timing drive uses a chain. It was stretched to a mileage of 120,000 kilometers. In 2015, the chain was modernized and strengthened. It lasts twice as long. It was received not only by newer engines, but also by older ones, if the services and owners purchased and installed the updated chain. When replacing a chain, it is worth measuring and adjusting the thermal clearances of the valves. This engine does not have hydraulic compensators. Otherwise, this engine serves without any problems and worries about little things: cleaning the throttle, ignition coils, possible fogging on gaskets and seals. But you shouldn't skimp on motor oil. It should be changed after 10,000, or better yet, after 7,500 kilometers, which will greatly increase the service life of the engine and postpone the likely problem of oil consumption. 1.4. The second most popular engine in the second generation Ceed is a 1.4-liter naturally aspirated engine, but these engines before and after restyling are slightly different. 1.4 G4FA 100 horsepower. Before restyling, the Ceed was equipped with a 1.4-liter engine, which is a smaller copy of the 1.6-liter. All of them belong to the Gamma family. Their features are the same. 1.4 MPI G4LC 100 horsepower. After restyling, a new basic aspirated engine from the Kappa family appeared. This motor is equipped with hydraulic compensators. Thermal clearances in it do not need to be adjusted. There are no major problems with operation either. 1.6 GDI G4FD 135 horsepower. 1.6 T-GDI G4FJ 204 horsepower. Let's return to 1.6-liter engines again. It is rare to find a direct injection engine on a Ceed, and hatchbacks in the GT version have a turbocharged 204 horsepower engine. These are motors of the Gamma family, i.e. very close relatives of the most common 1.6-liter engine with multi-point injection. In the first years of production, when refueling with bad gasoline, the turbo engine could scatter its pistons, and there were also cases of turbocharger where during the warranty period. 1.4 CRDI D4FC 90 horsepower. 1.6 CRDI D4FB 110, 128 horsepower. Diesel Kia Ceeds are very rare, but in vain, because Korean diesel engines with a displacement of 1.4 and 1.6 liters are good. They offer efficiency, vigorous traction, and a decent resource. M6CF16 speed. Let's talk about manual transmission. You need to keep an eye on her, because with age on the Ceed, it begins to fog up on the seals. The most unpleasant leak is at the input shaft oil seal. The driver will be alerted to a leak in this area by a slipping clutch, and then by a large spot at the junction of the transmission and engine. By the way, the slipping clutch disc will also have to be replaced, because it'll already be burnt. To protect the mechanics from squeezing out the seals, it is recommended to remove the rubber valve under the breather cap. It is located on top of the transmission. It is because of this valve that the transmission is not ventilated and conditions arise for an increase in air pressure in it. Although the transmission input shaft oil seal has been modified and replaced under warranty more than once, over time it becomes difficult to shift gears. Let's say right away that the gears are difficult to engage due to the fact that the clutch does not open completely. In this case, look under the clutch pedal. You will see a plastic rod going into the clutch cylinder. The eye with which the rod clings to the pedal will be broken and loose. It is because of this that the clutch does not open completely. The rod can be replaced separately, 416701M000. It costs about $20, and you can find it in the Serato model catalog. Craftsmen do not buy a rod, but install a bushing in a worn one. In mechanics, it is worth updating the transmission oil, MTF Prime 75W85, 043000140, to extend the life of its bearings. A6 GF16 Street. You can safely take a Kia Ceed with an automatic transmission. However, it is worth making sure that the transmission does not kick. Well, it is also advisable to clarify the history of ATF replacement. Until 2016, the ECU of this transmission was reflashed to mitigate the consequences of an incorrectly operating ATF temperature sensor. We're talking about the A6 transmission, or rather the A6 GF1. You can take a look at it. On our channel we have a review of its slightly more powerful version A6 MF1 for 2 and 2.4-liter engines. This Korean automatic with Japanese roots, it is created on the basis of Mitsubishi transmissions and runs up to 250,000 kilometers and even more without breakdowns. Changing the oil every 60,000 to 80,000 kilometers will make life much easier for its valve body. If you don't get carried away with active pedaling, then the torque converter will thank you. Don't dream about replacing the filter before the overhaul. It is located deep in the housing and is accessible when it is opened. On Ceed there are pre-selective transmissions, i.e. double clutch Robot 6 Street. The Robot D6 GF1 is a development by Look. It is optionally available for cars with 1.6-liter GDI and T-GDI engines. On rare diesel Ceeds of the second generation, the Korean Robot D7 GF1 is even rarer. It was created by Dimos. Although these transmissions have different origins, problems with clutch servo drives, wear of the clutches themselves, and kicks when changing gears are characteristic of them. Some roughness in the operation of these transmissions was eliminated with new firmware. If that did not help, then the entire box was changed under warranty. Repairing such transmissions is traditionally very expensive. The suspension of the Kia Ceed is standard for a C-Class car, McPherson struts in front and 4 links in the rear. Although on its sibling Serato in the sedan body, the rear wheels are held by a semi-independent beam. The consumables in this suspension are stabilizer rods. The original lasts an average of 60,000 kilometers. It all depends on the smoothness of the roads. Original links for the front and rear stabilizers can be found for $25 to $40. The steering tips do not last much longer. The original will cost $25. Next, the silent blocks of the rear suspension will need to be replaced, but the parts of the trailing arms last a long time. Using the original, you can buy any silent block of the rear arms. The cost of original parts is from $35 to $70. Kia Ceed wheel bearings last an average of 150,000 to 200,000 kilometers. They are a single part with the hubs, so the prices are appropriate. $180 for the front and $100 for the rear. There are plenty of substitutes at better prices. The front suspension is strong. Levers, their silent blocks and balls are sold as originals and are replaced separately. For about 100,000 kilometers, the rear silent block serves here. It will cost $32. Ball joints cost $25. Strut support bearings cost $30. Prices for original suspension parts are very reasonable. On many Kia Ceeds, an error light came on in the ABS system, and the diagnostics indicated a break or short circuit in the wiring of one of the rear sensors. Indeed, in most cases the whole problem is a wiring break, and most often the break is not visible, i.e. the core inside the braid bursts. The weak point is the lowest bend in the wire under the hub. If you have skillful hands, you can try to restore the break. Craftsmen either change the entire 2-wire cable from the sensor to its connector, which is located behind the trunk trim, almost level, or they try their luck by opening the standard cable at its very bottom. A new ABS sensor costs $70. The electric rail does not foretell any problems. It was knocking during the warranty period. It was repaired by dealers by replacing the bushing, which eliminates play and knocking of the rack. Korean bodies turned out to be durable and unpretentious. They are in no hurry to rust and retain a decent appearance for a long time. However, the roof panel above the windshield can look untidy, pebbles knock off the paint, and exposed metal rusts. The trunk lid was repainted during the warranty period, because spots of rust appeared on the outside of it. But over the years, corrosion appears on the edges of the rear door lid. The taillights also rub off the paint on the body around them. Corrosion later appears in these places. Owners of Ceed cars who are aware of this problem remove the taillights and stick armor film over the areas where the paint has been rubbed off. Also, rust on the tongue of the trunk lock is not that uncommon. For now, this defect is decorative in nature. Some owners clean and tint the tongue of the lock. Similar corrosion appears on the front seat rails, namely on their supports around the floor mounting bolts. The situation is similar, either turn a blind eye to it, or clean it and paint it with black paint. On some Ceeds, the front door seal rubs off the paint in the doorway, namely in its lower front part. Opposite this place in the seal attached to the door there is a plastic fungus. It is this that scratches the paint. If the seat was driven without front mudguards, then sandblasting with road dirt removes the paint from the sills. This is especially noticeable on cars of dark colors, because there is a light primer underneath the paint. Typically, a layer of anti-gravel protection on thresholds lasts a long time and protects the metal. Under warranty, dealers updated the front seats in which the lumbar support either fell apart or the heated backrest turned off, sometimes causing the upholstery to burn out. True, the latter is typical for Ceeds produced in Slovakia. A standard backrest heating mat, 883908-2000, will cost $120. The upholstery of the upper part of the seats cost literally $20, but disappeared from sale. Sometimes the armrest built into the door trim starts to crunch on the Ceed. First of all, this concerns the driver's door. The crunch appears due to the fact that the plastic base of the armrest simply cracks. Craftsmen remove the door trim and glue the base of the armrest from the inside. Under warranty, the outer glass seals of the front doors and the windows themselves were replaced on Ceed cars produced until 2014. The design of the seals was such that sand and small stones fell into them, as if into a trap, which then, when lowering the glass, slipped and scratched their surface. Some cars have problems with the climate control system. For example, on one side the stove can fry on the driver's side, but on the other it will blow cold. In general, you can diagnose the climate control system yourself. Hold down the off button and press the blow in the face button middle button 4 times. In this case, error 20 will most likely appear. It indicates a problem with a hot and cold air mixing damper potentiometer. The potentiometer is located on the driver's side and can be corrected by cleaning. If the steering wheel buttons begin to act up, i.e. if they work every once in a while or don't respond at all, we recommend that you first disassemble the steering wheel down to the buttons and clean the contacts under them. Usually the problem is precisely the contamination that has gotten under the contacts, but the steering cable on this model has not yet failed. Kia Ceed-enriched trim levels are equipped with keyless entry into the cabin. Often this function does not work because one or more antennas have failed. 826588-2000. They are located in the front door handles and in the trunk door. Original antennas cost $70. By the way, in some cases they can be repaired. On many Ceeds, the windshield wiper trapezoids were changed during the warranty period. The trapezoid began to creak. The speed of the windshield wipers was greatly reduced. Then the trapezoid simply turned sour and the wiper stopped moving. There is very little lubricant from the factory. In addition, it is washed out by water that gets into the frill. And then corrosion appears. Sometimes the wiper arms can be removed with considerable effort. On the navigator's side, a hose for windshield washer fluid goes under the frill. At any opportunity, we recommend installing clamps on the windshield washer T to firmly secure its tubes. They flew on completely new Ceeds and continue to do so at the most inopportune moment. The restyled Kia Ceed second generation pleased with LED daytime running lights. And then I was upset that they started blinking and then stopped shining. Headlights on cars under warranty were replaced by dealers. Many owners had to solve the problem themselves. As it turned out, the problem is not in the LEDs, but in their drivers, i.e. in control boards. Craftsmen have suggested alternative driver boards that work better than the original ones. Only to replace them you will have to make a hole in the plastic housing of the headlight from below in order to connect the plug of the new board. Owners of a Kia Ceed with a gasoline engine sometimes struggle with minor but unpleasant vibrations at idle. They are often accompanied by flickering lamps in the interior lighting. It turns out that the problem is a worn alternator overrunning clutch. The original clutch costs $120, 373202B000. Usually it is replaced with a regular pulley, $373,202 E10, which is 10 times cheaper.